So now they're whispering about deals with darkness, about midnight contracts signed in something thicker than ink, about how nobody gets this lucky without paying a price they can't name out loud. They're staring at your wins like evidence at a crime scene, trying to decode the impossible, trying to explain why you're untouchable when you should be buried. They've done the math over and over, and it doesn't add up because people like you aren't supposed to rise from those ashes, aren't supposed to laugh after that much damage, aren't supposed to be standing here glowing like you swallowed lightning and liked the taste. Let them theorize, let them create their little horror stories about what you must have sacrificed, because they need an explanation that makes sense in their small world where suffering is supposed to break you permanently. They can't accept that maybe, just maybe, you found something more powerful than their understanding, something that doesn't require signatures or sacrifices, just the complete destruction of who you used to be. They want to believe you traded something sacred, because the alternative that you earned this through pure transformation terrifies them more than any supernatural explanation ever could. You see, their problem isn't with your success, it's with the speed of it, the totality of it, the way you went from forgotten to unforgettable without following their precious timeline. They watched you disappear into yourself and expected you to come out broken, but instead, you emerged recalibrated, like someone who rewrote their own source code without permission. Your luck doesn't feel human because it isn't luck at all. It's the mathematical certainty of someone who stopped believing in their rules and started writing new ones in languages they can't even recognize. They keep asking, "What did you trade?" as if there must be some cosmic transaction, some deal with forces they'll never understand, because they can't imagine gaining this much without losing something essential. But here's what they don't get. You did lose something. You lost your fear of their opinions, your addiction to their validation, your need to be understood by people whose comprehension ends where your transformation begins. You didn't sell your soul, you reclaimed it from every person, place, and thing that ever tried to own it. And now they're faced with something they can't buy, manipulate, or destroy. Look at them trying to piece together your timeline like forensic accountants searching for the moment everything changed, searching for the smoking gun, the devil at the crossroads, the blood moon ritual. 6 months ago you were drowning, and now you're walking on water, and they need to know how. They need to find the loophole, the cheat code, the unholy alliance that explains your elevation. They're scrolling through your past looking for signs of the transaction, examining your words for hidden meanings, studying your movements for evidence of otherworldly assistance. But they'll never find the moment because it wasn't a moment. It was a complete cellular reorganization that happened in the spaces between their observations. While they were watching your social media, you were having conversations with parts of yourself they don't believe exist. While they were gossiping about your failures, you were failing forward into a version of yourself that operates on different physics entirely. The timeline doesn't make sense because you stopped living in linear time, started existing in a reality where cause and effect bow to intention and will. They want receipts for your transformation, but some changes don't leave paper trails. They leave scorch marks on reality itself. You didn't gradually improve, you quantum leaped, and now they're trying to explain interdimensional travel with suburban logic. Every win you stack seems impossible because they're measuring with the wrong instruments, using scales built for people who play by rules you've deleted from your operating system. Your trajectory breaks their understanding of gravity because you're not rising. You're revealing what was always there, hidden under layers of programming. You finally had the courage to burn. The really funny part is they think this is about material success, about the money flowing, the opportunities appearing, the doors opening without explanation. But those are just symptoms of the real trade. You made the exchange of your small self for something that refuses to be contained. You traded the need to make sense for the power to make impact. Traded the comfort of fitting in for the authority of standing out. Traded the safety of being understood for the electricity of being undeniable. Oh, they're building a case file on you, aren't they? Collecting evidence of your impossible luck, documenting every synchronicity, every perfectly timed opportunity, every door that opened just as you arrived. They're creating spreadsheets of your wins, trying to find patterns that explain why reality seems to bend around you now. Why obstacles dissolve before you reach them. Why people who ignored you for years suddenly can't stop watching. The evidence is overwhelming. Something changed, something fundamental, something that shouldn't be possible according to their physics. They point to the way your presence fills rooms now, how conversations shift when you speak, how even your silence carries weight. That makes strong people nervous. They notice how problems that should destroy you become fuel instead, how betrayals that should break you make you stronger, how every attack against you seems to backfire on the attacker with mathematical precision. This isn't normal progression. This isn't natural development. This is something else entirely. And they need someone to blame. Because accepting your power means questioning everything they believe about how the world works. Watch them study your transformations like theology students examining miracles, looking for the trick, the illusion, the man behind the curtain. But there's no wizard here, just someone who learned to conduct their own electricity without asking for permission from the power company. They want to find the demon you dealt with because that's easier than admitting you became your own supernatural force through nothing more than refusing to die when they expected you to. The evidence they're compiling will never satisfy them because they're looking for external sources when the transaction was entirely internal. You didn't sign away your soul to some entity. You signed it back to yourself. Reclaimed it from every moment of self-betrayal, every compromise that made you smaller, every agreement to be less than what you are. The luck they can't explain isn't luck at all. It's the universe responding to someone who finally stopped negotiating with mediocrity. Let me tell you what you really traded, because they'll never understand it even if you explained it in perfect detail. You traded the comfort of being a victim for the discomfort of being responsible for everything. You traded the warmth of fitting in for the cold clarity of standing alone. You traded the ease of following paths for the exhaustion of creating your own. You traded the soft landing of excuses for the hard impact of accountability. These aren't trades that happen in shadowy ceremonies. They happen in the middle of regular Tuesday afternoons when you decide you're done pretending. You traded your need to be liked for your need to be real, and that single exchange rewrote every contract you had with reality. You traded the small, consistent pain of living beneath yourself for the massive, temporary pain of becoming yourself fully. You traded the security of knowing your limits for the terror of discovering you don't have any. You traded the prison of other people's expectations for the wilderness of your own potential. And yes, that wilderness has teeth, but at least they're your teeth now. The soul they think you sold was never yours to begin with. It belonged to everyone who taught you to shrink, to apologize for your intensity, to lower your voice, to make yourself digestible. What you traded was the lie that you needed their permission to exist at full volume. You exchanged your addiction to approval for immunity to disapproval, and that's why you seem supernatural now, because most people are still desperately trying to be loved, while you've evolved past needing anyone's validation to fuel your existence. This is why your luck seems inhuman, because you're operating outside the human need for consensus, for agreement, for the comfort of the herd. You traded the safety of the known for the power of the unknowable. And now you move through life like someone who's seen the code, like someone who knows the game is optional, like someone who understands that reality is more negotiable than anyone wants to admit. What really terrifies them isn't that you might have sold your soul, it's the price you were willing to pay without any cosmic intervention at all. They can't fathom choosing transformation over comfort, choosing truth over peace, choosing power over popularity, without some external force making that choice for you. They need you to be possessed, because the alternative that you chose this consciously makes them confront their own cowardice, their own refusal to pay the price for their own evolution. The price you paid is visible in the way you don't flinch anymore, in the way you can sit with silence, in the way you can watch people leave without chasing them. It's in your ability to be misunderstood without explaining yourself, to be rejected without crumbling, to be attacked without defending. You paid in nights that lasted years, in relationships that became ghosts and versions of yourself that had to die screaming. You paid in every moment. You chose the unknown over the familiar, chose growth over comfort, chose becoming over belonging. They look at your life now and see someone who must have cheated because they can't imagine paying what you paid voluntarily. Every blessing in your life was purchased with a betrayal you survived. Every gift came wrapped in grief you transformed. Every moment of luck was earned through lessons that would have killed someone weaker. You didn't trade with demons, you traded with yourself, exchanged every false comfort for uncomfortable truth until you became too real for their reality to contain. Fate. Fate, 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 fate. You didn't trade with demons, you traded with yourself, exchanged every false comfort for uncomfortable truth until you became too real for their reality to contain. The price that really haunts them is the one they're unwilling to pay, the complete annihilation of their carefully constructed false selves. You paid it in full up front. No payment plans, no negotiations. Just the brutal, beautiful exchange of everything fake for everything real. That's why your luck seems supernatural, because you're operating with the power of someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Someone who already paid the ultimate price and lived to spend the reward. Listen to them scrambling for explanations that make your rise make sense within their framework of limitation. They need you to have cheated, because if you didn't, then everything they believe about how success works is wrong. They need you to have made a deal, because if this is just what happens when someone stops playing by the rules, then they've wasted their whole lives following instructions that lead nowhere. Your existence without explanation is an existential threat to their entire worldview. They're consulting their spiritual advisors, their therapists, their bitter friends, anyone who will confirm that what you've achieved isn't supposed to be possible. They are looking for the fine print in your success story, the hidden costs, the terrible price you'll pay later, because they need to believe the universe punishes people who rise too fast, who shine too bright, who refuse to wait their turn. They need karma to catch you, because if it doesn't, then karma might not work the way they thought. And that means they might be responsible for their own mediocrity. Watch them create elaborate theories about your transformation, about the dark forces that must be protecting you, about the eventual fall that must be coming. They're writing your doom in their minds because your success without visible sacrifice breaks their understanding of cosmic justice. They need you to be punished for succeeding without suffering the way they did, for achieving without asking permission, for becoming without approval. Because if you can do that, then what was their suffering for? The explanation they're desperate for will never come, because the truth is too simple and too terrifying. You just decided to stop living by their physics. You stopped believing in their limitations, stopped accepting their timelines, stopped waiting for permission to be powerful. There's no mystery here, just someone who realized the entire game was optional and decided to play by their own rules instead. That's not magic, that's just courage dressed up as impossibility. The real magic isn't in what you traded, it's in what you kept, while everyone else was busy selling pieces of themselves for acceptance. You kept your rage when they told you to calm down, kept your hunger when they told you to be grateful for crumbs, kept your vision when they tried to convince you it was delusion. You kept the parts of yourself they called too much, too intense, too dangerous, and those parts became the engine of your transformation. The magic is that you didn't trade anything, you just stopped giving yourself away for free. While they were making deals with mediocrity, accepting less than they deserved in exchange for the comfort of fitting in, you were building something unholy out of your refusal to compromise. Every no you said to their limitations became a yes to your own expansion. Every bridge you burned lit the way to something better. Every person who left because you became too real created space for reality to reward your authenticity. The magic wasn't in addition, it was in subtraction, removing everything that wasn't yours to carry. Your luck looks supernatural because you're operating with the full force of someone who isn't carrying anyone else's expectations anymore. You're not dragging the weight of needing to be understood by people who speak a different language entirely. You're not slowing down to match the pace of people who are committed to staying stuck. You're moving at the speed of someone who cut all the unnecessary ties, all the energy drains, all the contracts that were written in someone else's handwriting. The real magic is that you learn to generate your own reality instead of renting space in theirs. You stopped being a character in their story and started writing your own, and now they're watching plot twists they never saw coming because they're not the authors anymore. You didn't sell your soul to gain this power. You just stopped letting them lease it. Stop letting them use it as collateral for their comfort. Stop letting them dim it to make their darkness feel brighter. Now they're getting desperate with their accusations, saying you must have sacrificed something precious, someone important, some part of your humanity to achieve this level of untouchability. They're examining your relationships, looking for the bodies, the casualties, the collateral damage that must explain your rise. They need to find evidence that you destroyed others to build yourself, because the alternative, that you simply chose yourself repeatedly and completely, makes their own self-abandonment unbearable to confront. They're whispering about rituals you must have performed, energies you must have channeled, forces you must have aligned with, because no one gets this powerful without help from something beyond human understanding. But what they don't realize is that you did have help from something beyond human understanding. You had help from the version of yourself that exists beyond their human understanding. the one that operates outside their matrix of limitation, the one that doesn't need their physics to make sense. The accusations will get louder as your success becomes more undeniable. They'll say you've changed, that you're not the same person, that something dark has taken over. And they're right. You have changed. You're not the same person, and something has taken over the real you. Finally took over from the performance you were giving. The darkness they sense isn't evil. It's just the absence of their light in your life. The void left when you stop needing their approval to illuminate your path. Let them make their accusations. Let them create their theories. Let them try to explain your transformation through their limited understanding of what's possible. Every accusation is an admission that you've exceeded their reality. Every theory is a confession that you've broken their rules. Every whisper about what you must have traded is actually recognition that you've gained something they never will. The complete ownership of your own existence. Your luck isn't luck, and it isn't inhuman. It's what happens when a human finally stops pretending to be less than they are. Every synchronicity they can't explain is just reality responding to someone who finally got clear about what they want. Every door that opens without explanation is just the universe recognizing someone who stopped knocking politely and started kicking them down instead. Every opportunity that finds you is just life rewarding someone who stopped hiding from their own power. The timing of everything seems impossible because you're not operating on their schedule anymore. You're operating on the schedule of someone who understands that time is negotiable. Things happen fast for you now because you stopped believing in their speed limits, stopped accepting their timelines, stopped waiting for the right moment and realized every moment becomes right when you decide it is. Your luck seems inhuman because most humans are still asking for permission, while you're just taking what was always yours. They see coincidences where you see consequences, the natural result of finally aligning with yourself completely. They see magic where you see math, the simple equation of what happens when someone stops dividing themselves to make others comfortable. They see supernatural intervention where you see natural law, the principle that state's reality reshapes itself around people who refuse to be shaped by it anymore. Your luck is just physics. They don't teach because it only works for people willing to break the rules. They do teach. The truth about your luck is that it's not luck at all, it's leverage. The kind you get when you finally find your real center of gravity and refuse to be moved from it. It's the compound interest on all the times you chose yourself when it would have been easier to choose them. It's the return on investment from every moment you invested in your own evolution instead of their comfort. You decided on you. It's what happens when someone stops playing lottery with their life and starts playing chess with reality itself. Ah, so you thought they wouldn't notice. You thought you could just slip back into the room, into their feeds, into their consciousness, wearing a completely different energy, and nobody would feel the shift in the atmosphere. But here's what actually happened. The moment you walked in, the temperature dropped, the air got thicker, conversations stuttered, and every single person who thought they had you figured out suddenly realized they were staring at a stranger. A stranger with your face, your name, your history, but absolutely none of the weakness they remembered, none of the desperation they fed on, none of the predictability they banked on. You showed up different, and it broke something in their reality that they can't fix, can't explain, can't ignore. Let me paint you the picture of what just happened in their minds. For months, maybe years, they had you cataloged, filed away in a neat little box labeled, handled, predictable, controllable, broken, maybe even defeated. They knew your patterns, your reactions, your triggers, your limits. They could almost script your responses before you opened your mouth. You were the constant in their equation, the variable they never worried about because you always equaled the same result. And that gave them comfort, power, a sense of superiority that they wore like armor. But then you disappeared, not physically maybe, but energetically you withdrew, you went silent, you stopped feeding the machine, you stopped playing the game. And they genuinely believed that your absence meant you were somewhere licking your wounds, nursing your damage, maybe even regretting who you were or what you did. But that's not what happened at all. While they were busy celebrating your exit, you were in the shadows doing something they couldn't comprehend. You were shedding every single layer of who you used to be, not because you were broken, but because you finally realized you were wearing a costume designed by their expectations, their judgments, their limitations. You were performing in a play you never auditioned for, reading lines written by people who didn't even respect the story. So you stopped. You walked off stage mid-scene, and instead of collapsing like they predicted, you found yourself the real you, the untamed, unfiltered, unapologetic version they never got to meet, because you were too busy trying to be digestible, acceptable, understandable. And when that version finished cooking, when you finally stepped back into the light, you didn't come back to explain yourself or prove anything. You came back because you were ready, and that readiness radiated off you like heat off asphalt in summer. Now let's talk about the exact moment they saw you. Maybe it was a photo, maybe it was a story, maybe you walked into a room, maybe you posted something that landed on their screen. Whatever it was, it hit them like a freight train made of confusion and envy. Their first reaction wasn't admiration, it was defense, it was disbelief, it was denial. Who do they think they are? They muttered. This is fake, they whispered. They're trying too hard, they convinced themselves. Because accepting that you genuinely evolved, that you actually transformed without their permission or participation, would mean admitting they were wrong about you, wrong about themselves, wrong about the entire dynamic they thought they controlled. And nobody, absolutely nobody, wants to admit they lost control of a narrative they thought they owned, especially when the person they underestimated is now the one writing the sequel. Here's where it gets beautiful though. You didn't change for them. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to become someone else to spite them or prove them wrong or win them back. That's what they can't wrap their heads around. They're so used to people performing, posturing, pretending for validation, for attention, for approval, that when someone transforms authentically, it looks like witchcraft. It looks impossible. You changed because you got tired of betraying yourself. You changed because staying the same started costing more than growth ever could. You changed because silence taught you more than their voices ever did, because solitude showed you more than their presence ever revealed. You changed because you finally chose yourself with the same intensity you used to choose, keeping the peace, maintaining the connection, preserving the illusion. And that choice, that singular decision to prioritize your evolution over their comfort, rewired everything. Let me tell you what's happening in their group chats right now. They're analyzing you like you're a crime scene. Did you see them? Something's off. They're different. I don't know what it is, but it's weird. They're trading screenshots, dissecting captions, reading between lines that don't even exist because they're desperate to find the crack, the flaw, the proof that this transformation isn't real. They need it to be temporary, a phase, a mask. Because if it's permanent, if it's genuine, then they lost something they can't get back. Not you. They lost that the moment they chose to underestimate you. But they lost their sense of superiority, their feeling of control, their ability to predict and therefore manipulate. You became the unpredictable element in their otherwise stale equation. And unpredictability is the enemy of people who need to feel like they're always 10 steps ahead. And here's the part that's eating them alive. You're not explaining yourself. You're not writing long posts about your journey. You're not giving them the satisfaction of a breakdown or a breakthrough speech. You're not performing your transformation for their consumption. You just are. You exist in this new frequency without needing their validation or understanding. And that silence is louder than any monologue you could deliver. Because silence forces them to sit with their own thoughts, their own doubts, their own realizations. It forces them to question everything they thought they knew, not just about you, but about themselves. If they could change that much without us noticing, what else are we blind to? If they didn't need us to become that, what did they ever need us for? These questions are haunting them in ways they'll never admit out loud. You want to know the real psychological warfare you're unleashing right now. It's not that you became better, prettier, richer, stronger, although maybe you did become all those things. The real weapon is that you became unavailable. Not just physically or romantically or socially unavailable, but emotionally, energetically, mentally unavailable to their narratives, their judgments, their projections. You're no longer a character in their story. You're not the villain they needed to justify their victimhood. You're not the victim they needed to feel powerful. You're not the supporting role they needed to feel like the main character. You removed yourself from their script entirely and started writing your own, and that removal created a void they can't fill with anyone or anything else. Because you weren't just another person in their life, you were the mirror that showed them who they really were. And now that mirror is gone. They're left staring at walls, wondering why they suddenly look so empty. Let's get into the specifics of what they're seeing now when they look at you. They're seeing confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. They're seeing peace that doesn't need to perform itself. They're seeing boundaries that don't need to explain themselves. They're seeing someone who walks into rooms without scanning for approval, who speaks without waiting for validation, who exists without needing permission. And all of this, every single element of this new you, is completely foreign to the person they remember. The person they remember apologized for existing, shrunk to make others comfortable, dimmed their light so others wouldn't feel outshined, carried guilt that wasn't theirs, shouldered blame they didn't earn. That person is dead, and you're standing on that grave wearing flowers they could never grow. Now here's where we need to address the elephant in the room, the guilt they're trying to make you feel for changing. Oh, they're trying. You're not the same person anymore. They'll say, and they'll say it like it's an accusation, like consistency with who you used to be is somehow more valuable than growth into who you're meant to be. They'll call you fake, phony, a persona, anything to discredit your transformation, because accepting it would mean accepting their failure to break you, to keep you small, to maintain the upper hand. They need you to be the villain in your own story, so they don't have to be the villain in yours. But here's your response: silence. Not because you're scared, not because you're guilty, but because people who are committed to misunderstanding you don't deserve the energy it takes to be understood. Let them build their theories. Let them craft their narratives. Let them twist your growth into whatever story helps them sleep at night. Meanwhile, you'll be busy actually living, actually growing, actually thriving in ways they can analyze but never replicate. And can we talk about how they're suddenly interested again? Funny how that works, isn't it? When you were available, accessible, predictable, they barely looked your way. They took you for granted like oxygen, necessary but unremarkable. But now that you're different, now that you're unavailable, now that you're clearly thriving without them, suddenly they're sliding back in. Suddenly they're watching your stories first. Suddenly they're liking old posts. Suddenly they're mentioning you in conversations. Suddenly they're asking mutual friends about you. This isn't love. This isn't regret. This is ego. Their ego can't handle that you evolved without them, that you became someone worth paying attention to after they stopped paying attention. They're not coming back because they miss you. They're coming back because they miss having access to you, and those are two completely different things. Here's what they're really questioning right now, and trust me, it's not just about you. They're questioning their own evolution, or lack thereof. While you were transforming, what were they doing? Staying the same, recycling the same patterns, the same relationships, the same mistakes, the same conversations, the same life. And your transformation is holding up a mirror to their stagnation, and that reflection is unbearable. Because if you could change that drastically, what's their excuse? If you could heal that deeply, why are they still bleeding? If you could break those cycles, why are they still spinning? Your growth is proof that change is possible, and that proof invalidates every excuse they've been using to stay comfortable in their dysfunction. You're not just living your life anymore, you're exposing theirs, and that's a level of threat they never prepared for. Now let's talk about the energy shift that happens when you walk into a room now. People feel it before they see you. There's a gravitational pull that didn't exist before, a magnetism that makes heads turn not because you're trying, but because you're not. You move differently. You breathe differently. You exist differently. You're not performing confidence. You're exuding it. You're not faking peace. You're embodying it. And this energy, this new frequency, it's not something you can fake or force or manufacture. It's the byproduct of real internal work, of real healing, of real shedding, of real becoming. And people who are still stuck in performance mode, still stuck in pretending, they can smell the authenticity on you like it's a threat to their facade. They can feel that you're no longer playing the game they're still trapped in. And that realization makes them simultaneously attracted to you and terrified of you. Let's address what they're saying behind your back, because we both know they're talking. They think they're better than us now, they say. They changed and forgot where they came from, they claim. Success changed them, they whisper. And here's what you need to understand about these statements. They're all projections. They're not describing you, they're describing their insecurities. Because in their minds, growth equals betrayal. Evolution equals abandonment. Transformation equals arrogance. They can't conceive of someone changing for themselves without it being a statement about everyone else. So when you show up different, they take it personally. They take it as judgment. They take it as rejection. And maybe, just maybe, they're not entirely wrong. Because your growth did reject something, it rejected their limitations, their expectations, their attempt to keep you in a box. And that rejection, that refusal to stay digestible and controllable, that's what they call arrogance, when really it's just autonomy. Here's a question for you. Do you even recognize who you used to be? Because I guarantee you, the person who started this journey, the person who existed before the silence, before the shedding, before the awakening, that person is unrecognizable now. Not because you're pretending to be someone you're not, but because you stopped pretending to be someone you weren't. You peeled back every layer that wasn't authentically yours, every belief that was implanted, every behavior that was conditioned, every response that was programmed. What's left isn't a new you, it's the real you, the uncorrupted version that existed before the world told you who to be. And this version, this raw, unfiltered, unapologetic version, this is what they're seeing now. This is what's making them question everything. Because they realize they never actually knew you. They knew the performance, the mask, the version you presented to survive their judgment. And now that the mask is off, they're meeting you for the first time. And they're not prepared for how powerful that introduction feels. Now let's get into the practical ways this transformation is manifesting in your daily life. You're saying no without guilt. You're choosing yourself without apology. You're setting boundaries without explanation. You're walking away from situations that don't serve you without looking back. You're investing in yourself without asking permission. You're celebrating your wins without dimming them for others' comfort. You're acknowledging your worth without waiting for external validation. Every single one of these actions is a revolution in a world that taught you to shrink, to settle, to sacrifice, to suffer silently. And each time you exercise this new autonomy, you're not just changing your life, you're rewriting the entire narrative of what's possible for people who've been where you've been. Here's what they didn't count on. That you'd find yourself in the darkness they thought would destroy you. They assumed isolation would break you, that silence would suffocate you, that absence would erase you. But instead, in that darkness, in that silence, in that absence, you met yourself for the first time without their interference, their input, their influence. And that meeting, that introduction to your authentic self, changed everything. Because once you know who you really are, once you taste real peace, real power, real alignment, you can never go back to pretending. You can never unsee what you've seen, unlearn what you've learned, unfeel what you've felt. You're ruined for superficiality now, ruined for performance, ruined for settling. And that ruins their plans to ever control you again. Let's talk about the specific moment they realized they lost you. Maybe it was when you stopped responding with the urgency they were used to. Maybe it was when you stopped explaining yourself in ways they could dissect. Maybe it was when you stopped showing up to battles they tried to start. Maybe it was when you stopped caring about their opinion, their judgment, their narrative. Whatever the moment was, they felt it. They felt the shift. They felt the door close. And that feeling, that realization that they no longer have access, that they no longer have influence, that they no longer matter in your world the way they thought they did, that's what's driving them insane. Because people who are used to having power over you don't know how to exist when that power is revoked. They don't know how to process being irrelevant in your story after being so central for so long. And here's the beautiful irony. They're now the ones under the microscope. They're the ones being studied, analyzed, dissected by their own guilt, their own regret, their own what-ifs. While you were under their scrutiny, they felt powerful, superior, righteous. But now that the roles have reversed, now that they're the ones being examined by the life you're living without them, they can't handle it. They can't handle being the cautionary tale in someone else's redemption story. They can't handle being the chapter you had to close to start the good part. They can't handle being the lesson instead of the teacher. And that reversal, that complete inversion of the power dynamic, that's the real transformation they're witnessing. Not just that you changed, but that you changed so much that their entire framework for understanding you became obsolete. Now let's address the fake concern they're suddenly showing. I'm worried about you, they say. You don't seem like yourself, they claim. I hope you're okay, they text. And all of this translates to one thing. I'm uncomfortable with how little control I have over you now. Their concern isn't care, it's surveillance. They want information, access, insight into what you're doing, how you're doing it, who you're doing it with. They want to find the flaw, the crack, the weakness, anything that confirms their narrative that this transformation is temporary, artificial, unsustainable. But you're not giving them anything. You're not explaining, you're not defending, you're not performing your healing for their comfort. And that refusal, that decision to keep your peace private and your process protected, that's driving them absolutely mad. Here's what's happening chemically in their brains right now. Cognitive dissonance. The person they see now doesn't match the person they remember. And their brain is working overtime to make sense of that discrepancy. Option 1. Accept that you've genuinely changed and they were wrong about you. Option 2. Convince themselves that this change is fake and they were right all along. Guess which option their ego is choosing? That's right, option 2. Because option 1 requires humility, self-reflection, accountability, things they're not equipped for. So they'll twist themselves into mental pretzels trying to discredit your growth rather than just admitting they underestimated you. And honestly, let them. Let them exhaust themselves building cases against your authenticity. Meanwhile, you'll be busy actually living authentically. And that contrast will speak louder than any defense you could offer. Now, let's talk about the people who are genuinely happy for you versus the ones who are pretending. You can feel the difference, can't you? The real ones, the ones who actually see you and celebrate you, their energy feels light, supportive, warm. They ask questions out of genuine curiosity, not interrogation. They celebrate your wins without immediately pivoting to their own struggles. They give you space to be different without needing to understand every detail of how you got there. But the fake ones, the ones who are threatened by your transformation, their energy feels heavy, probing, conditional. They compliment you, but there's a question mark at the end. They celebrate you, but there's a comparison attached. They support you, but there's an expectation embedded. You can feel them studying you, trying to figure out how to either replicate what you did or discredit it entirely. And that feeling, that energy, that's your compass for who deserves access to this new version of you and who doesn't.